The cry beneath two suns, the twin suns of Orkai, burned the desert with cruel light. Every grain of sand shimmered like molten glass, and the air itself trembled. From far across the endless dunes came a small, broken sound, a child's cry, weak, frightened, and full of despair. The alien girl's skin glowed faintly blue beneath the harsh sunlight, her small hands raw from the ropes that tied her to a jagged stone. Her voice was cracked from thirst, her eyes searching the horizon again and again, hoping her mother would return. But the only answer was the sound of the wind, whispering through the dunes like ghosts. The punishment was cruel, even by the standards of her people. Her mother, a soldier who had defied the Galactic overseers, was captured, and as warning, the child was left tied beneath the suns until she cried herself silent. For 2 days she had been there, her tiny form shaking, her lips dry, her hope fading with each passing hour. The galaxy moved on, uncaring. Merchant ships passed overhead, ignoring distress signals. Slavers watched from the shadows, waiting for her to weaken enough to claim. Even the Council's satellites recorded her suffering, but no one intervened, because mercy was a word long forgotten beyond Earth's reach. Then through the waves of heat, something began to move. At first, it looked like a mirage, a dark figure walking upright where no sane being dared. The child blinked, her vision blurry, the figure growing clearer with each step. A strange creature wrapped in torn armor, dust clinging to his boots, a black visor reflecting the twin suns. The stranger was human, though the girl did not know that word yet. He stopped a few feet away, studying her quietly. His breathing was slow, controlled, as if the heat didn't bother him at all. The alien child whimpered and tried to hide her face, afraid this was another tormentor. But then the man knelt down, his shadow falling over her small form like a cool night. "Easy," he said softly, his voice carrying through the wind like something gentle, something alive. The child looked up, confused, her eyes wide and glimmering. The man's gloved hands reached for the ropes, and with one slow motion, he cut through the bindings with a knife made of steel that glowed faintly blue. The smell of ozone filled the air, and the girl gasped as her hands were free for the first time in days. She tried to speak but only managed to whisper, Why are you helping me?" The man didn't answer right away. He lifted her into his arms, his movements careful, almost reverent. "You called," he said finally, looking out toward the blazing horizon. "And we heard, from far above, a shadow crossed the suns, a sleek ship, gray-scarred, and human, descended through the atmosphere, engines humming like thunder. Dust rose around them as the craft landed, and the air shimmered with heat and power. Inside the cockpit, more humans moved, each armored, each silent." The child stared in disbelief, her mind unable to understand what was happening. The man carried her inside and gave her water. She drank greedily, tears running down her face. For the first time in her life, someone had shown her kindness outside. The desert winds screamed louder. The overseers had noticed something strange. Someone had dared to interfere with their punishment. A warning beacon began flashing in the sky. The man looked up and muttered under his breath, "Let them come." He set the child gently down, his helmet reflecting the red warning light. Because in this galaxy, mercy was rare. But when humanity chose to show it, the stars themselves trembled. The overseer's wrath. The silence of the desert did not last long. The child sat inside the human ship, wrapped in a thermal blanket far too large for her small frame. Her wide eyes reflected the metallic walls, the hum of power, and the man who had saved her. He removed his helmet, revealing a face marked by old scars and calm eyes that had seen too much war. His hair was dust gray, his expression steady. The alien girl flinched when the engines roared, but he spoke softly. "You're safe now." Safe. A word she had never truly known before. Outside, however, the skies were not calm anymore. The overseers had seen everything through their satellites. A human ship had entered restricted airspace, and alerts spread across the sector. Metallic drones lifted from black towers miles away, rising like angry insects against the burning suns. The leader of the overseers, a being with translucent skin and eyes that glowed red like dying stars, watched from her throne of glass. "Human interference," she hissed, her voice sharp and cold. "They crossed borders again." Her aides bowed low, fear trembling in their words. "Orders, High Overseer?" Her claws tapped the armrest slowly. "Send the enforcers," she said, her lips curling into a smile that promised cruelty. "Let this human remember his place back aboard the ship." The human commander, Captain Reeve, checked the scanners. "Multiple hostiles incoming," reported the AI voice calmly. Reeve smirked. "Of course they are." He looked at the little girl, who stared back with frightened curiosity. "You got a name?" he asked. She nodded faintly. "Carrie," she whispered. He smiled. "All right, Carrie, hang on." The ship lifted off, engines roaring against the desert wind as they rose higher. Beams of red energy sliced through the clouds. Enforcer ships, sleek, silver, and merciless, were closing fast. The human crew moved with calm precision. "Evasive maneuvers," Reeve ordered. "Let's not start a war just yet." Carrie held onto her seat, watching as stars blurred past the windows. Her small heart raced, not from fear now, but from awe. She had never seen anyone defy the overseers before, but these humans, they didn't fear the impossible. They moved like they belonged to the chaos. The first enforcer ship fired, its beam striking close to their hull. Shaking the cabin violently, Carrie screamed, covering her ears. Reeve gritted his teeth. "All right." "That's enough," he muttered. "Target lock." "AI. Locked," replied the machine voice, calm as a whisper. "Fire." A single pulse of blue energy left the human ship. It struck the enforcer dead center, turning it into a sunburst of molten debris. Carrie gasped, her eyes wide. "You destroyed them?" Reeve looked at her quietly. "No," he said softly. "We warned them." The other enforcers hesitated. Circling warily, they had fought pirates, rebels, and smugglers, but not humans, not since the old wars. Not since Earth had closed its gates and vanished behind its wall of silence. The overseers had believed humanity was broken, gone, forgotten. But now, seeing a single ship destroy an enforcer in one shot, fear began to return far above. The overseer command channels were alive with panic. What are their weapons made of? How did they bypass our shields? Identify the human origin immediately. But no one had an answer. Inside the ship, Reeve leaned against the console, looking at the child. "You said your mother was taken?" Carrie nodded, tears forming in her eyes again. "They said she defied the council. They said she wanted freedom." Reeve's jaw tightened. "Freedom," he repeated slowly. "Yeah, they hate that word." He turned to his crew. "Plot course to the Overseer Citadel." The navigator blinked. "Captain, that's suicide." Reeve's eyes were cold steel. "They chained a child under their suns," he said. "They're about to learn what mercy really looks like when humans bring it." Outside, thunder rolled in the vacuum of space. The stars shimmered as the human ship accelerated. Behind them, enforcers tried to regroup, but their systems began to fail. Unknown signals scrambled their navigation, human tech. Ancient but powerful, Carrie clutched her blanket, whispering softly, "Mother, he's coming for you." And somewhere deep within the Overseer Citadel, alarms blared. The ancient servers of their war archives flickered to life. For the first time in centuries, a forgotten phrase appeared on their threat list, glowing in red letters across their command displays. Category 0 threat detected. Humanity returned. The Citadel of Chains. The human ship broke through the atmosphere of Orkai's sister world. Before them rose the Overseer Citadel, an impossible structure of black crystal and silver veins that pulsed like a living heart. Lightning arced around its towers as if the planet itself feared what it had built. Captain Reeve stood at the viewport silent, watching the fortress grow larger with every second. Carrie sat near the console, eyes wide, clutching the small blanket he had given her. "This is where they took her," she whispered. "My mother is inside." Reeve nodded slowly. "Then that's where we're going. Inside the Citadel." Chaos spread like wildfire. Overseer soldiers rushed through the corridors, their helmets gleaming with pale light. "Human vessel detected in orbit," the alarm screamed. "Activate planetary defenses," ordered the Warden of Chains. Huge cannons emerged from the mountains surrounding the Citadel. Glowing red as they powered up, Reeve's crew braced as the first barrage struck their shields. The ship shook violently, sparks showering from the panels. "Shields at 70%, shouted the pilot. Reeve didn't flinch. "Good enough," he said calmly. "Deploy the decoys and prepare to land." Metal petals unfolded beneath the ship, releasing a storm of reflective drones that scattered through the sky. The cannons fired wildly, chasing the false signals through the confusion. Reeve's vessel dropped low, slicing through the clouds like a shadow of vengeance. They hit the ground hard, skidding across black glass and sand before coming to a halt near the citadel's outer walls. Reeve pulled a heavy rifle from the armory. Kari watched him, fear flickering in her eyes. "You'll stay with the ship," he said. His voice steady. She shook her head, tears forming again. "You won't find her without me." Reeve looked at her for a long moment, then handed her a small comm device. "Stay behind me," he said quietly, "and no matter what happens, don't run." The citadel's outer gates loomed like the jaws of some ancient beast. They opened with a shriek of metal, and a dozen overseer guards poured out, their weapons raised. The leader shouted, "Identify yourself." "Intruder." Reeve's voice was calm. "Name's Reeve, captain of the USS Resolute." He raised his rifle slowly. "And I'm here for a little girl's mother." The overseers opened fire. Energy bolts scorched the ground, lighting the air with white fire. Reeve moved like liquid steel. Each shot from his rifle was precise. Every movement deliberate. When the dust cleared, silence returned, broken only by the hum of the citadel's power core. Kari stood frozen, staring at the fallen guards. Reeve turned to her and said softly, "Don't look at them. Look forward." They moved deeper into the fortress. Every corridor glowed faintly red, like veins running through a body of stone. Screams echoed from distant chambers, slaves, prisoners, rebels, each one a reminder of the overseer's cruelty. Finally, they reached a chamber lined with glass cells. Inside one of them knelt a woman with glowing blue skin, her wrists bound in magnetic cuffs. Her eyes closed in exhaustion. Kari's voice broke. "Mother." The woman's head snapped up, her breath catching. She pressed her hands against the glass, disbelief flooding her face. "Kari?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "You're alive?" Reeve raised his hand, placing a device against the cell door. "Step back," he said. The device pulsed, releasing a wave of light that shattered the magnetic locks like glass. The cell door fell open and the alien woman stumbled forward, tears streaming down her face as she clutched her daughter tight. Kari sobbed against her, whispering over and over, "He helped me, Mom." The human saved me for a moment. The world stood still. Even Reeve turned away, letting them have that small piece of peace before the storm returned. Then came the voice, cold and echoing through the chamber. "So," it said, "the ghost of Earth still walks among stars." From the shadows emerged the High Overseer, her tall form wrapped in liquid silver armor, her eyes glowing crimson. She stared at Reeve like a predator studying prey. "You don't belong here, human," she hissed. "Your kind was erased for a reason." Reeve stepped forward, the light of the shattered cells flickering behind him. "Then maybe it's time the galaxy remembered why we left," he said, his tone low and steady. The Overseer's lips curved into a smile. "And maybe it's time you learned that mercy is weakness." The floor beneath them trembled as energy fields powered up, sealing every exit, the chamber filled with a strange hum. Reeve looked at the mother and child and whispered, "Stay close." His eyes glowed faintly blue as the armor on his arm came alive. Ancient tech whispering to life. Because this wasn't just a rescue anymore. It was the beginning of something the galaxy had long feared, the human's fury. The chamber shuddered as the Overseer's power flared. Walls of light rose around Reeve, trapping him in a circle of shifting energy. Kari clung to her mother, her tiny hands trembling, her eyes wide with terror. The High Overseer's armor gleamed like molten mercury, her claws flexing as she stepped closer. "You think one human can defy a council that rules 10,000 worlds?" She sneered. Reeve tilted his head slightly, dust falling from his shoulder as he replied softly, "One's enough." The Overseer's laughter echoed, cruel and sharp. "You were extinct, shadows of myths." Reeve's gaze didn't move. "Extinct things don't walk into your throne room." Her rage cracked like thunder. Energy surged through her gauntlets, forming a sphere of pure light that could vaporize a ship. She hurled it at him, and the chamber exploded with sound. When the light faded, the dust cleared, and the Overseer's smile faltered. Reeve was still standing, his armor glowing faintly with lines of old blue fire. Symbols pulsed across the plates, ancient human code long forbidden in galactic law. The Overseer stepped back, whispering, "Impossible. That's relic tech. Sealed since the Exodus." Reeve's voice was calm, almost sad. "Earth never sealed it. We perfected it." He moved faster than sight, his gauntlet slamming into the ground. The shockwave ripped through the citadel like a quake. Towers outside cracked, Alarms screamed, and Overseer guards stumbled in panic. The High Overseer hissed and charged again, her blades of plasma slicing through the air. Reeve caught them with his bare hands, the blue light burning brighter around him. The metal melted in his grip, dripping to the floor like liquid stars. Kari's mother pulled her daughter close, whispering prayers to any god that could hear. But Kari's eyes were locked on the human. She wasn't afraid anymore. She saw something deeper than violence. She saw protection. Defiance, the kind of strength her world had forgotten. Reeve turned slowly, his voice low. You enslaved children, burned planets, and called it order. The Overseer spat. We brought peace. You brought silence, he said, and humanity doesn't live in silence. The blue fire from his armor climbed up his arm, flowing to his weapon. The rifle transformed, expanding and unfolding into a spear of light. Its core pulsed with the echo of thunder. The Overseer tried to retreat, but her command systems were failing. Human code had infected her armor. Get out of my systems, she screamed. Reeve's voice answered like a storm. You opened the door. He hurled the spear. It flew through the air, leaving a trail of blue lightning that tore the chamber apart. When it struck the Overseer, the explosion was silent, pure light consuming everything. When the glow faded, nothing of her remained but ash and echoes. The fortress groaned, its structure collapsing. Reeve staggered, his armor flickering, his strength fading. Kari ran to him, her voice breaking. Please, don't fall. He smiled faintly beneath his cracked visor. Still standing, kid? He placed a small metallic disc in her hand, its surface engraved with the symbol of Earth. Keep that safe, he said softly. It means you're one of us now. The roof above them split apart as escape pods fired from the human ship outside. Reeve lifted Kari and her mother, guiding them toward the light. Explosions thundered behind as the citadel burned. Flames rose like a sunrise, and through the dust, the human ship ascended once more, carrying them to the stars. From orbit, the wreckage of the citadel glowed red against the blackness of space. Kari watched through the viewport, her eyes still full of tears but burning with new fire. What will happen now? She whispered. Reeve looked out at the stars, his face lit by the glow of destruction. They'll come for us, he said quietly. But this time, they'll find out what happens when humans fight for something worth saving. And far across the galaxy, the Overseer network pulsed with alarms. Every display flickered with a single transmission, a signal that had not been heard in centuries. Origin signal detected, Earth transmission active. The galaxy trembled because humanity had just returned, and this time they were not coming as conquerors. They were coming as reckoning, human retaliation. The message to the stars. The wreckage of the citadel still burned when the signal left the planet. It spread like wildfire through the void, jumping from one relay to another, reaching stations that hadn't transmitted in decades. Everywhere the same line appeared on holographic screens, written in bright blue human letters. To those who forgot Earth, we remember you. Across the galaxy, fleets froze. Merchants stopped mid-route. Entire governments went silent. The Overseer's networks tried to block the transmission, but it slipped through every firewall, every defense like a ghost whispering through time. For the first time in 1,000 years, the word human returned to the tongues of 100 species. In the ruins of Orkai, Kari sat near the viewport of the human ship, staring at the stars. Her mother rested nearby, exhaustion and relief softening her face. Captain Reeve stood beside them, silent, watching the monitors as the message continued to broadcast. He knew what it meant. He hadn't just rescued a child. He had awakened a memory buried under centuries of fear. Why did you send it? Kari asked quietly. Reeve looked down at her, his voice steady but heavy. Because the galaxy should know humanity still exists. But won't they be angry? She whispered. They already were, he said with a faint smile. Now they'll have to decide whether to fear us or join us. Far away in the core worlds of the Galactic Council, chaos reigned. The council chambers overflowed with delegates shouting across marble floors. Impossible, cried one. Earth destroyed itself centuries ago. Then explain the signal, said another, trembling. The Overseer remnants hissed from the shadows. If humans are truly back, then the balance will collapse. Maybe the balance needed breaking, answered a quiet voice from the back, belonging to a species once conquered by the overseers. And so, the first sparks of rebellion began to burn again. Meanwhile, the human ship, the Resolute, cruised through the dark between stars. Its engines glowed faint blue, the hum steady and comforting. Kari followed Reeve through the corridors. She was small beside him, but her steps were steady now, not afraid. The crew treated her not like an alien, but like family. A medic smiled as she handed Kari a small pendant shaped like Earth's moon. "This is where our stories started," she said softly. Kari clutched it close, feeling warmth against her palm. In the command room, Reeve stood before a holographic map of the galaxy. Hundreds of red markers blinked. Overseer outposts, slaver hubs, systems ruled by fear. Beside them, small blue points flickered to life one by one, human distress beacons reactivating after centuries of silence. Old colonies thought lost answering the call. Reeve's second-in-command turned to him. "Sir, they're responding." He nodded slowly. "Good. Then what's next?" The officer asked. Reeve's eyes hardened. "Now, we remind the stars what it means to be free." Kari listened from the doorway, her heart pounding with strange new courage. She turned to her mother. "Will we go home?" Her mother looked at her gently. "Where humans go, home changes." Outside, the endless dark of space shimmered, dotted with light like embers waiting to ignite. For the first time, Kari didn't feel small. She felt part of something vast, alive, unstoppable. Then the Resolute's sensors flared. An incoming transmission appeared, faint, distorted, but unmistakably human. "This is Outpost Genesis calling, to any surviving fleet of Earth. We hear you." The bridge fell silent. Reeve's hands tightened on the console, his eyes wet with the smallest spark of hope. A voice long lost to history was answering back. He whispered softly, "Welcome home." The signal strengthened, spreading again. From star to star, system to system, the galaxy watched as blue light swept across the void like dawn after endless night. And in every world once chained by the overseers, children looked up and asked, "Who are the humans?" And somewhere, in the ruins of broken empires, the stars themselves seemed to reply, "They are the ones who remember mercy, and they never stop coming." The worlds that answered back. The message from Earth did not fade. It echoed across systems like an awakening heartbeat. Old satellites flickered to life, space stations long abandoned hummed again, and alien fleets paused their wars to listen. On the bridge of the Resolute, the crew watched as responses began to pour in. Tiny green dots appeared on the star map. One after another, signals from species who had once bowed to the overseers. They spoke different tongues, but every message carried the same feeling. Hope, a miner's colony from the frozen world of Terex, sent a short burst of static followed by trembling words. "We thought you were gone, but we never forgot the stories of the humans." From the water world of Ryal, the amphibian queens broadcast a song that translated as, "Welcome back, bring your fire to our sea." Even a few broken machines from the old war era, AI remnants left adrift, sent coordinates and whispered, "Directive. Reconnect to origin." Kari stood beside Reeve, her reflection shining in the star map. She watched the lights spread until they looked like constellations forming new shapes. "Are they joining us?" she asked softly. Reeve nodded. "Some are. And the others?" "They're watching," he said, "trying to decide if they fear us or trust us." Not everyone welcomed the return. In the dark sectors, overseer warlords still commanded fleets. They gathered in shadowed halls, their voices filled with venom. "The humans will bring chaos again," one hissed. "They will burn what we built," said another. Yet beneath their anger was something deeper, terror, because they remembered what humanity had done the last time it rose in anger. Meanwhile, Reeve's engineers worked day and night, rebuilding old systems. Each human ship they reactivated carried history written in its hull. Names like Dauntless, Vigil, Mercy, and Odyssey lit up on scanners. And every time one rejoined the network, the galaxy grew a little brighter. Carrie's mother walked the observation deck, feeling gravity for the first time in days. She turned to Reeve and said quietly, "You're not just saving people. You're changing everything." Reeve gave a small nod. "That's the problem with change," he said. "It scares everyone first." A new signal arrived, faint, coded, unlike the others. The AI analyzed it, then displayed a symbol older than the Council itself. A burning circle surrounded by 12 points. Reeve froze, his breath catching. "That's an Earth command seal," he whispered. Carrie blinked. "From your planet?" He nodded, eyes fixed on the glowing emblem. "It means there's still someone out there giving orders." The bridge lights dimmed as the message decrypted. A voice filled the air, calm, deep, unmistakably human. "This is Admiral Sarah Holt of the Terran Ark," it said. "To any surviving Earth forces, you are not alone." Gasps rippled through the crew. Kari smiled, tears sparkling in her eyes. Reeve's fists clenched, but there was a grin hiding behind his exhaustion. He whispered, "They made it." The transmission continued. "We held the line when the gates fell. We preserved the flame. And now we call all free worlds to the gathering at Erebos Station." Coordinates followed, pulsing on the screen like a heartbeat. Every allied ship received it at once. Every frightened world looked to the same point in space. Reeve turned to his crew. "Set course for Erebos." The engines of the Resolute rumbled to life. Light spilling from its wings like dawn, Kari took her mother's hand, whispering, "We're really going to meet them." Reeve looked at her and smiled faintly. "You'll see Earth's children together again." As the stars stretched into lines, one last image remained behind them, the ashes of the Overseer's empire drifting quietly through space. And in that silence, a promise lingered. Humanity had returned not as conquerors, but as the storm before renewal. The galaxy would never be the same. The gathering at Erebos. The Resolute emerged from hyperspace into a sea of light. Before them floated Erebos Station, a colossal ring suspended above a blue-white gas giant. Its surface shimmered with thousands of vessels gathered from every corner of the galaxy. Alien cruisers, human warships, cargo haulers turned into refugee arks, all united under the same silent sky. Kari pressed her hands to the window, her eyes wide in awe. "There are so many," she whispered. Reeve stood behind her, his armor repaired but still scarred. "More than I ever thought would answer," he said softly. They all heard the signal. Docking lights guided the Resolute toward the central bay. Human soldiers in dark gray uniforms stood shoulder to shoulder with alien volunteers. Flags of lost worlds fluttered in the station's artificial breeze. And at the center of it all stood Admiral Sarah Holt, her white coat lined with silver, her eyes sharp as starlight. When Reeve stepped onto the platform, the crowd fell silent. He and Holt faced each other for a long moment, the distance of centuries between them. Then she smiled, a slow and knowing smile. "Captain Reeve," she said, "you did what the galaxy thought impossible." He bowed his head slightly. "You taught us to survive." Carrie peeked out from behind him. Clutching her mother's hand, Holt's expression softened. "Is this the one you rescued?" Reeve nodded. "She's the reason we came back." The Admiral knelt, looking into the child's bright eyes. "Then she carries the courage of two worlds." Around them, the massive chamber filled with murmurs as more envoys arrived. Reptilian warlords who once ruled through fear, now standing beside human engineers. Robotic minds flickering beside living soldiers. Every race that had ever suffered under the Overseers now came seeking the same thing. Hope. Holt raised her voice, her words echoing through the station's core. "For centuries they said humanity was gone," she said. "They said Earth was dust, our name a myth. But we endured," she continued, her tone rising. "We hid, we built, and we waited. Because we knew one day the stars would call for help again. And when they did, we answered." Applause thundered through the hall, voices of 100 species shouting together. Carrie looked up, her eyes wet, her heart swelling with something she couldn't name. She whispered, "They're not just warriors." Her mother smiled. "No, they're guardians." Later, In the command dome overlooking the gathering fleets, Reeve and Holt stood side by side. Through the glass stretched an ocean of light, ships from every world, orbiting in quiet formation. "This is only the beginning," Holt said. "We've awakened more than memory. We've awakened belief." Reeve nodded slowly. "And belief can burn brighter than any weapon." Outside, the stars shimmered as new signals arrived. More worlds pledging their allegiance to the reborn alliance. A chorus of beacons lighting up across the void. One after another, Kari watched them from the deck, her reflection merging with the stars. Her small voice carried through the intercom. "My mother was tied to a rock beneath two suns. But now she walks among the stars and she is free." On Erebos Station, humans and aliens alike paused to listen. Even hardened soldiers smiled. Reeve's gaze softened as he whispered, "That's what they'll remember." Beyond the station, fleets began to move in perfect arcs. The new alliance taking shape like constellations reborn, no longer scattered, no longer silent. Earth had returned not as myth, not as conqueror, but as a promise, and somewhere in the dark beyond known space, unseen eyes watched the gathering. Old enemies stirring, ancient empires waking, because wherever humanity rose, the galaxy itself began to change, and this time, the stars would have to decide, stand against them, or stand beside them. The engines roared, the banners rose, and a new dawn spread across the heavens. "For Earth," someone shouted. "For all worlds," another answered. And from every ship, every heart, came the echo that would shake the universe once more.